So I'm Gen X, author and ultra runner, and I want to welcome you into From Vinyl to Viral, where we talk about everything from Gen X and Gen Z perspective to do with music, pop culture in general. And I'm joined today by my favorite co-host.
And I'm Veruca, a Taylor Swift fanatic and Gen Z daughter.
And today we're going to talk about our top three records. We made a little bit of a mistake because I texted Veruca. I was like, let's talk about our top three records. But for somebody who's really into music like myself, I didn't clarify. Are we talking top three greatest records ever made, top three from our own generation, or top three today that we're listening to? So we'll see what happens. Veruca, go ahead and start and give us one.
So I definitely want to go backwards, start with the least favorite of the top three. And I think from this file, just looking at it, I went with my favorite records, not necessarily the best records ever
Okay.
created. I do have the hard copies of the vinyls here in front of me, so I'll hold them up as I go into it. But do you have any predictions, possibly, of what I might have here?
I don't know if you're doing from your generation or how you decided to do it, but I will say there's got to be a Taylor Swift record. Which one, or if it's all three Taylor Swift records, I don't know. I'll go with Speak Now.
Okay. Well, starting off with my number three album, and I have my honorable mention here as well. It's gotta be the Paramore All We Know Is Falling record.
I should have got that.
Yeah, definitely a favorite for me. I think there's a lot of nostalgia behind this one for me too. This is actually my first ever vinyl, I think, and just kind of all around favorite album. My honorable mention was, of course, the Riot
All
album.
right.
It's really hard to say between those two, but I think All We Know Is Falling is probably my favorite between those two.
All We Know Is Falling is definitely my favorite Paramore record. I love it. It's a no skip record for me. I think you probably heard it from me first growing up, and that's where you got it. I don't know if it was your first vinyl. I do know it was your first concert, Paramore and
Oh
Fall
yeah,
Out Boy.
yeah.
So
That was during the I forget what that album. Maybe it was called self-titled.
thinking back about it, I do remember when you were younger listening to Riot a lot.
hmm
I never knew you actually really liked All You Know Is Falling, so that's really cool.
I felt like that one was such an easy listen for me all the time. I listened to it a lot as a younger kid, and then last year when I was training for my marathon, the whole album was on my marathon playlist, and I would even sometimes during my runs listen to the full album, and I listened to it during my marathon too.
Cool.
And a lot of the songs on the album were on my Spotify Wrapped last year as well. So
So I got All You
yeah.
Know Is Falling on vinyl as well. I don't know if
Oh,
I
do you
told you
really?
that. Yeah, not too long ago. I actually listened to the full album itself when I was running over the holidays up in Wisconsin. That's a cool record. I guess I'll talk about one. First of all, let me say this. My number one would have been, guess what? Nevermind, of course, but we
Oh, of
talked
course.
about that
Oh, we
last week.
talked about that.
So I picked three more. You want to take a guess at any? I think one you should definitely get. I don't
I
know
think
about the other two.
I was thinking about this earlier. I was thinking more like artists. I was saying in my head like there has to be a Nirvana, maybe, possibly in Utero. That would be my guess if you were gonna.
No, I didn't use another Nirvana.
Okay. I was also thinking Guns N' Roses. There's got to be some Guns N' Roses in there. But other
Okay.
than that, I don't know. I feel like
I
it
don't
could
know.
be a mixed bag depending on what route, what kind of theme you gave yourself.
Gave myself from growing up as a teenager kind of
Okay.
theme because if I said my number one, it would probably been The Queen is Dead by the Smiths, which
Oh
I
yeah.
thought you would guess. I didn't really rank mine. I know which one's number one, so I'll just grab one right here and go with the Nine Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral. This was actually their second record. They put out Pre-Hate Machine before, but I wasn't really aware of them then. I became aware of them on MTV and funny story. How I acquired my first copy of Downward Spiral is I actually stole a cassette tape.
Five
I
finger
want,
discount.
yeah, I think it might have been one of the first cassettes I ever stole. And I do want to go on record and say I stole it from a Walmart or something. I didn't steal it from a local record store because that's just not what you do. And I loved it. It's very dark. You know, a lot of people listened to it, got into it because of the Closer song, which was kind of a hit, I guess, if you will. I listen to the whole thing together because it provides something I don't really see a lot as much in records anymore, a concept album where from start to finish is telling one cohesive story. At the time, I didn't really get it as much, but when I go back and listen to it now, I understand the complete theme of the guy and the despair he's going through and the rage, and eventually alludes to him ending himself. So, yeah, that's my number 3. You know, it came out, and I wish I would have looked up the year, but I had to have been like a junior or so in high school, I believe.
I also have an album from my junior year of high school on my list we'll get to. But my number 2 had to be, of course, you guessed it, Speak Now by Taylor Swift. Probably my favorite vinyl I own as well, since it's the original.
Not the Taylor's version.
No, not the Taylor's version. I think everybody knows too, and they talked about it on TikTok when the Taylor's version came out, about how it was different. It missed some of the angst that she had in the original. I remember as a kid, especially this album specifically, laying on the floor and looking at all of the photos and reading through the lyrics and like picturing everything, like the same way you do when you read a book. So
Right.
it means a lot to me. I think the storytelling in this album is just fantastic, so had to be on the list.
That's interesting you brought up, reading the lyrics. I thought that was something that had been lost along the line in the generations because, when I was a kid, you would get cassettes or even CD, and you could always, most of them came with a little thing, and you could read the lyrics along. Yeah. I was huge on reading the lyrics. I know a lot of people are not. And just listen to the music for the vibe. I don't understand that. I can't understand it. It's not how I work. I think that's interesting. I don't know. Do people still do that these days? Do you watch the lyrics on Spotify as a strong streams or?
Yeah, I don't think they do. I would honestly say this is the only album for me that's like that I would read through the lyrics as I listen to it. And I think it's mostly just because the pictures, of course, I love looking at those pictures, but also the story that she tells throughout the album too. So I don't know, everything else is different. I'm definitely one of those people when it comes to many albums of sometimes I'm just there for the vibes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a loss.
There's some things you listen to for the vibes. I always talk about the Chainsmokers, but on the whole, I'm more of a lyric type person, and I like to hear what they're saying.
Yeah. I don't know. I love a catchy ballad that I just love the tune of. So, yep. Okay. What's your number 2?
Number 2, I'm going to go with Smashing Pumpkins.
Of course.
Siamese Dreams. This isn't what the original album looked like. This is some anniversary edition, but the original album's white. It still has the twins, but it's a little bit different looking. In case you are confused, that album, again, I think I was a junior, maybe a sophomore when it first came out. And I absolutely loved the Smashing Pumpkins. It was just the heavy fuzz covered. It was a little bit of a departure from grunge itself. Even though it came out at the same time and they were from Chicago, they were known for their heavy use of fuzz. It's very dreamscape-ish to me, very heavy and very, for me personally, very emotional album. I can listen to that record and there's just songs where I can feel it, what I was going through at the time. So much so I even put in the book, Tumbling Dice up there. Get it on Amazon. One of the songs, Mayonnaise, made the book just because that was such a powerful feeling I have with that song. It's not for everyone. I just like the dreamscape kind of fuzz covered and even some louder parts of it. It's just an album I can listen to just about any time all the way through.
Yeah, I get that. I really like the Smashing Pumpkins too, so I'm grateful that you introduced me to their music. I think this ranking were different, and I was ranking albums just based off of like the greatest albums that I think were to exist.
After that, they came out with Pisces Iscariot, which was a B-side album. They did a bunch of B-sides and demos, and on it, I don't know if you've ever heard it, they did a cover of Landslide.
No, I don't think I've ever heard that, no.
Yeah, so funny story about that record. I got the Pisces Iscariot on CD, and I was like 16, I remember, and I got my gallbladder taken out. I'm in the hospital. That was like what I listened to in the hospital, like recovering. They had this quote unquote morphine drip, even though half the time it's not doing nothing, but you click it and I would just like lay there dazed, and it's like the perfect album to kind of daze out and listen to. So yeah,
After
that
getting
was,
your gallbladder out.
yeah, you should check out the cover of Landslide.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up after this for
Of course,
sure.
by Fleetwood Mac, and then they do a cover of a Jimi Hendrix song. And then they did the double album, which I remember vividly and I really liked. And then they started doing a couple other things, and I felt further away from the Smashing Pumpkins. But yeah, definitely growing up, it was a huge album for me. So, what you got next?
Okay, my number one. Any guesses after what you've seen?
I thought we were going to see Folklore Nevermore, but I don't know. I don't know. I
That's
really
definitely
don't.
gotta be up there. But okay, my number one is
Unless it's
Norman
debut.
fucking Rockwell by Lana Del Rey.
But
This album came out a day after my birthday in 2019, and I remember I listened to this album probably exclusively for probably 2 months straight of just this album. That was all that was playing in my headphones. Just loved this album. I felt like it perfectly captured what I was feeling at the time. I was
Okay.
16, junior in high school, like your other album. So, yep, some sad songs on there, but some really good writing as well. Also, I feel like this album, everybody with Lana Del Rey always talks about Born to Die, of course, which
Yes.
also love that album, or Ultraviolence. I'm not a huge Ultraviolence fan, but this album is where it's at for me.
Speaking of which, you're kind of blowing my mind a little bit because, if I'm picking any Lana Del Rey album, it's definitely Born to Die.
Yeah.
That might even be like one of my like top 10 all-time records. I can sit and listen to that. I have it on vinyl as well, and I listen to it a lot over and over and over. When I start listening to it, I just keep playing it over and over.
Yeah,
Born
yeah, don't get me wrong. I love Born to Die. It's definitely one of my top albums overall, but I just feel like Norman effing Rockwell has such a like personal connection.
Yeah, I understand now.
Like it's like a time capsule for me.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. The time capsule kind of way I feel about really the first two I mentioned. They were a time capsule of me at that time. They say between 13 and 17 is where that's like the music that will define you for the rest of your life, kind of what you listen to. And so all those were in there. And the next record I'm going to talk about is one that's probably on the low end of that age group for me, because it definitely came out probably before I was even 13. I don't feel like doing math right now. So Veruca kind of already guessed it. Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses, of course. Growing up, the first tape I ever had that my parents got me for Christmas one year was a Beach Boys tape. And it was like a Beach Boys greatest hits, and I got a little cassette player with it, right?
Never
Because
known
up
you
until
to be a Beach Boys fan.
that point, all I had really listened to was my parents' music, which was at the time 80s and older country.
Okay.
And that's all they played all the time, 24/7. I might hear some songs like on the school bus or neighbors or a friend, but I think maybe like I talked before in the last episode, some of the pop at the time, of course, I heard the new Michael Jackson, New Kids on the Block, Tiffany, Debbie Gibson, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But they got me the Beach Boys tape, so that was the first thing that I really kind of started listening to, right? On my own. And then I think there was a couple other Beach Boys tapes, and then I got Eagles tape, the Eagles, and I really liked the Eagles a lot. But Guns N' Roses for me was the first kind of band that I chose, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The first one where I quote unquote discovered on my own. It didn't come from my parents. It didn't come from like anything like that. Of course, my friends were listening to it and whatever. And then the video for Welcome to the Jungle and everything. So that was like my first love, because at the time when it came out, everybody was still, the most metal most people got was Metallica, of course. I think Master of Puppets record at the time.
Yeah.
And then Guns N' Roses came along, and back in the 80s they had all the hair metal bands, right? We talked about this before, that were kind of, most of them were pretty cheesy, right? Type bands. If you go back and listen to them now, you would laugh at half the lyrics and then laugh even harder if you looked at their fits and some of the stuff they wore, the hair and the leotards and the tights and everything. But that was a thing. Like Poison was a big one, Def Leppard, Rat, all these kind of bands. And Metallica was still pretty much underground. You know, they were big in like the skate scene, the thrash scene.
Hmm.
They were kind of separated out. And, you know, Guns N' Roses came along, and they weren't hair metal, but they were still metal or rock, however you want to say it. You
Yeah.
know? And they came out and just like, it was one of those records too that just kind of like took over everything for a little bit of time.
Hmm.
Appetite for Destruction. And just, I remember watching the video for Welcome to the Jungle. That was their first single. And believe it or not, looking back, it's like, why was that the first single? It should have been Sweet Child of Mine or Paradise City. But it all worked out for him. And watching that video is insane. And I tell anybody to go watch that video. I mean, it might not be as shocking now, but when you're watching it as a kid when it first came out, you're like, what in the world? Like, they've got him tied to his electric chair. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. And they set it up like the jungle was Los Angeles. And because, much like myself, most of Guns N' Roses came from Indiana. And then they moved out to LA to hit it big. And yeah, but they came out with so much ferocity and just in your face that it was just so uncontrollable. I think that was the biggest difference between them and maybe a Metallica. Metallica came out, you know, with hard guitar riffs, right?
Yeah.
A hard sound, but Guns N' Roses wasn't necessarily as hard of a sound as they were just ferocious. And if you go back and watch their lives from back in the day, you're just watching and you're just like, it's almost jaw-dropping. You know, they were there to take over the world instantly. So yeah, that was kind of my first thing was Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. My parents didn't like it.
I was gonna ask, like, what were your parents' reactions to all of these albums, really?
Oh, a lot of them, like, they never even knew, or I kept them hidden at the time. Like, I would get them copied from a friend on tape, or you would stay up, tape them off the radio, that kind of stuff. In those deals, a lot of times they would come into my room or whatever, and I would just turn it off really quick or something. Not really the Appetite for Destruction as much because I was a little different, but I do remember when I got the Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusions albums, which were a 2-album set that came out at the same time. And they use a lot of profanity and a lot of stuff. Yeah, definitely those. It was funny, too, because you know my parents, of course, it's your grandparents. But they would like, oh, you can't listen to this. They're using all this profanity. Meanwhile, they're cussing me out while they're saying it type deal. Yeah, and it all came full circle. If you remember, we went to see Guns N' Roses on their first reunion tour.
Yep, in Munich, Germany.
That was a really cool experience for me, just seeing them live. Slash was amazing, and I'm glad we saw them on that tour because I've seen some of the latest ones because they're still out there, and it's just not good, especially with Axl. So what are your thoughts on Guns N' Roses? I know you've heard them plenty.
Yeah, I would say Appetite for Destruction, not really my thing if I gotta be honest, but the Use Your Illusions 2, I think is probably gotta be like, that's another one that if I was gonna rank based off of like the best albums I think were to ever exist, I'd probably put Use Your Illusions 2 on there just because of like Don't Cry, November Rain. Like those are kind of.
No, that's number 1.
Is that 2? Oh, that's 1.
Yeah. There's a Don't Cry on 2, but it's the alternate lyric version.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but the November Rain and Don't Cry and what else is on there is number 1 because number 2 is my favorite.
Oh, okay. So then I'm the opposite, the reverse. Because yeah, that like more softer version of like hard rock is
yeah, because usually number 2 is a little bit harder in parts, and it has Estranged on it, which might be the best Guns N' Roses song ever. And I encourage anyone, you want to see something really cool, go watch the Estranged video, or even the November Rain video. Have you ever seen November Rain video?
Oh, of course. I think there was like a time as a kid, I don't remember where we were at the time, but you being like, wait, come here, watch this. And like we sat down and we watched the November.
I remember I had a DVD too at one point, I think, of all their videos, and we watched it.
Oh, so maybe we watched that too.
Because I was trying to tell you about, even though you're probably too young at the time, that they told a story using Don't Cry, November Rain, and Estranged.
Yeah.
And they made it into a video, like a trilogy, but it was telling a story from this book. It's really weird. But yeah. So yeah, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Like I said, my number one would have probably been Nirvana, but we talked about that last week. As far as honorable mention, I would like to mention an album that gave me something to go forward with,
Hmm.
and that album would be Guns N' Roses. They came out with an album called The Spaghetti Incident,
Hmm.
which was a covers album. It was nothing but covers, and these covers were all like some were hard rock from the past, and a lot of punk songs like from bands I didn't know at the time, of course, like the UK Subs. I think they did a Misfits song. They did Johnny Thunders. They did like a lot of these older punk bands, and the reason I say it is it's important because I went heard this UK Subs song that I write, the cover of it, Down on the Farm, and I'm like, at the time we didn't have Spotify or anything like that, right? So or Google. So if you
Yeah.
wanted to hear something, you had to know somebody who had it, or something like that. In an obscure late 70s, early 80s UK punk band, not many people had. So you would go to the local record store, shout out A1 Records that used to be in Anderson, Indiana, and try to go find a tape or something of it. And I bought this UK Subs tape, and it was like the first real punk tape I got. And I think it's important just to highlight how bands do stuff like that, how they highlight things that will propel you going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I do remember. Do you not have it on like a vinyl now? Because I feel like I
Yeah,
can
I
like
do.
picture the cover.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, I
I have it.
remember you getting that.
Yeah, so that meant a lot to me. So, was there anything, musically you haven't mentioned that really opened up other things for you? Or,
I mean, I think that Lana Del Rey was like one of the first artists that I remember other people really talking about. Because I think like growing up, I listened to Paramore and Taylor Swift, but never had any idea that other people were listening to that music. It was just what I had known because it was being introduced to me from you. But like when you introduced me to Born to Die, there were also like other girls around me at the time. I remember actually I was telling a friend at work a story about one of my friend's older sisters listening to like Carmen off of the Born
hmm
to Die album by Lana Del Rey. And that was like the first time I ever really remember like other people being into the music that I listened to. And so that was like one of the first times I was ever like, what I listen to is cool and it's not just me that's listening to it. I guess. I don't know if it's a weird experience.
yeah, it's very neat. Did you ever have, so when I was growing up, I had neighbors, right? And again, we didn't have Spotify and
Mm.
that kind of stuff. But when I was a kid, I had a neighbor. He was older. Well, they had like three kids, four kids. And the one was older, significantly older. And so he was the guy that like listened to a lot of stuff that like I would never hear otherwise. Like we're
Mm.
talking like NWA,
Yeah.
hardcore hip hop, and some stuff like that. Too Short, just a lot of stuff that there's no way I would have heard because I grew up during the Tipper Gore and everything where they wanted to take these albums off the shelves and the explicit lyrics stuff, and they
Yeah.
wanted to ban these groups like Two Live Crew and NWA. Did you ever have any experiences with that? I mean, I was fairly open when you were a kid, so you really didn't have to go.
Yeah, I definitely would say that you were never the parent to be like, don't listen to that. In fact, I think there were sometimes that we were in the car and you
Yeah,
would play a song and I would be singing along and you'd be like, by the way, don't repeat those lyrics at school.
I
And
do
so,
remember times too when I'd be listening to something and your mom would be like, "No, she can't be listening to
oh,
this."
really? That's funny. Yeah, I don't think that that was ever really a thing for me of like, oh, I shouldn't be listening to this. You mentioned something about like getting music recorded from other people, and it made me remember the other day I was telling a friend about the Katy Perry California Girls album, and I
Okay.
remember we were in Florida at the time, and I would listen to the radio, and it was constantly on the radio at the time, and I didn't have any like it wasn't on my iPod or anything, but I really loved that album.
hmm
And so I took my DS, and because you could record sounds on DS.
Yes.
So when it would come on, I would record the sound on my DS, and then I would like go back later and I could listen to it on my DS. And I thought that that was another thing like where I was the only one doing that, but I was telling a friend the other day about it, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I actually also recorded music on my DS."
I saw a TikTok maybe like a week or two ago where they were doing that. Yeah, they were talking about how they used to do that, and they had found their old DS and they wanted to listen to what was on it.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my version of pirating music from
Pirating
other
music.
places. It was probably, I would guess that the quality too was probably much more terrible than like a
Uh,
recorded cassette too, which is even funnier about it. Like the
yeah,
DS.
you would try to record a cassette off the radio. I remember growing up, we got the Indianapolis stations, and it would be like Indie's Top 9 at 9. And they'd play like the top 9 songs at the time on there. And you would try to record it, but like half the time the DJ's talking over the intro or something. You'd always be all upset.
Yeah.
Or something, or you miss a song. You know, you could get the double tape player if your friend or somebody had it and then record their tape onto another tape.
Mm.
And then that's how you could, like, you know, of course, make mixtapes and stuff like that. And then it became the burned CDs. You know, I
Yeah.
went through the period of, like, I'm sure you've heard about, like, Napster, LimeWire, and all those.
Liar.
Yeah, LimeWire was one I used all the time. And it would be funny. I still see memes about it. It would say like, you know, Lincoln Park this, and you would record it, and it would be something completely different, like, or like just absolutely terrible sound quality or something. So
Yeah.
yeah, I distinctly remember because Lincoln Park was huge during my LimeWire time, and like Nelly was another one and stuff like. So you would try to record these and then make like mixed CDs. I still wish I had some of those.
Yeah. That'd be
Definitely,
cool.
definitely some of the mixed CDs. I watched a video where there's this lady on TikTok, I think it was. She does a thing where she has her like teenage daughter drive her around, and then she picks out a random mix CD she's had, and it'll be like crazy names like Linda's Merry Mix or Linda's Hype Mix and stuff, and then playing it and see what's on it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I wish I still had some of those around. Yeah. So here's one talking about music and history and like us Gen X. I saw a meme once. The reason we're so angry is because we had to buy tapes, CDs, and now streaming and keep going through our collections
Hmm.
and lo and behold, vinyl again. And it's true. I bought some records, albums on like every medium.
Yeah.
Probably more than once because I lose them or
Hmm.
something. Because at one point I remember I had 100 plus CDs in my car and they got stolen.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, you know, before long I had like 200 more. I did participate in the Columbia House scam many
What?
times over. If I ever get arrested, that's why. You ever heard about this?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So back in the day, there was like Columbia House and BMG, I think it was called. I can't remember the other one as much, but you would get like 8 CDs for $1.
Okay.
Okay. So you mail in this thing with $1 or whatever it was, it wasn't that much, and they would send you 8 CDs. And what happened was you signed up for a subscription where they would send you like a new CD each month, and you were supposed to pay for it or send it back. But the joke is like nobody ever did that. I signed up for it a couple times, did it like 3 or 4 times. So like I would get all these CDs and stuff. Everybody in my generation did it, and
And you were keeping the CDs?
oh yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, they would just stop sending them. But yeah,
Wow.
I think I did pay for like a couple at one point, but I don't even know why. But yeah, so that was a scam. There was like 2 companies. People would do that. Yeah, you never see memes about this or anything.
No.
I still owe Columbia House like $10,000 for CDs. Yeah, it was like 8 CDs for $1, and then yeah, it was a scam. But they're the ones that end up getting scammed, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. People used to do that all the time. So I got a lot of CDs like that. I got a lot from other means because
Hmm.
I did go through a phase of stealing them, which
So
is
when your CDs got stolen, it was really just
karma. I guess maybe I never thought about it that way. To be honest with you, I did always wonder like why my parents never really questioned where I got all these CDs and tapes, but I don't know. Yeah,
that's
because I remember one of my first 8 CDs for $1. I remember a couple of them specifically. One was the Weezer Blue album, which I definitely could have brought up on this podcast. I thought about it for a second. That reminds me, you ever notice that song on Life of a Showgirl? I know we talked about it last week, but the opening riff is straight up from Weezer.
Oh, you know what? The opening riff is what I think it's the Life of Ophelia song. I might be thinking of. Oh, never mind. Actually, I'm
No, it's
thinking
not.
of Opalite. The opening riff of Opalite is like sounds exactly like Circles by Post Malone.
No, there's another one. I just listened to it on the treadmill. It came up on my thing. I was listening to Upbeat Mix, and it came up. It was a Taylor. It's on the Life of a Showgirl, and its opening riff is the same as a Sweater song from Weezer. Exactly the same.
I'll have to see.
I don't.
Re-listen.
Yeah. But yeah, so I got that. I got this Carpenter's tribute album, and this album is wild. So it has like Sonic Youth on it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it has like all these weird like '90s alt bands covering Carpenter songs, and I think that's the whole reason I got it. I think it was because of the Sonic Youth cover of Superstar, and yeah, that CD was wild. And then I got like a Ramones record album. I think it was the one with oh my gosh, it wasn't like one of the older ones. It was ones that came out later. What is that song? One of the later Ramones songs that was popular at the time. But yeah, that's how you did it, man, back in the day.
I just remember, like, as a kid, I had my iPod Shuffle that you had gotten me. There was, like, literally a USB stick, yeah. And it was just, like, it was magic. Like, sometimes I would get my iPod Shuffle back, and there were suddenly all these new songs.
Yeah.
I didn't pick them. It was just, like, but sometimes they were really random. Like, I think there were some Celine Dion songs
What?
on there. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I didn't do that. I'm for sure.
So I remember, like, I would go through my iPod Shuffle. I could, like, probably tell you all of the songs that were on there. It would be, like, some songs from debut album Taylor Swift. Mm-hmm. There was some Celine Dion.
Was you watching the Titanic?
No, it wasn't that Celine Dion. It was, I could go back and look at I'll tell you later, but, because I still listen to that song to this day sometimes. But no, it wasn't from the Titanic. And then there was a lot of, like, the Pop Goes Punk.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what was on there.
The first couple Pop Goes Punk albums.
Yeah. What a mix to have, you know, Pop Goes Punk and then Celine Dion and then probably back to Pop Goes Punk. That's what it would be like. And then some debut Taylor Swift, you know, Picture to Burn.
Yeah, Celine Dion. I don't know how you came up with that. What song was it?
I can't remember. I'll have to look at what it was called.
I know I've heard other Celine Dion songs and I know them, but the only one I ever think about is the Titanic song.
I know it's from that album where it's like, you know, that classic early 2000s, like, soft pop cover where it's like the lady and she's got her, like, white t-shirt and her denim jeans and she's sitting in, like, this all-white room for who knows why, and it's just, like, a photo of her, like,
is she, like, eating one of those, like, chocolates? Like
the, like, chocolate commercial, staring wistfully off into the distance.
What is that for, Godiva or...
Lint.
No. Lint, yeah, Lint chocolates, yeah. That would pair nicely with some Celine Dion, I think.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
I got one more question for you.
Okay.
What's a record album that is probably older that you really like?
Like a
or
full
different?
album?
Yeah. That you would recommend to other people, maybe in your generation.
Oh, recommend to other people in my generation. I have two different answers for this. The first one, I'll say, was probably the Smiths, The Queen is Dead. Like, loved all those songs. I mean, I think I was fortunate enough to have you as a parent for that album just because the album's really hard to comprehend if you don't really know exactly what you're listening to. I literally know some songs we would sit in the car and we'd listen to a lyric, you'd pause it, and you'd be like, so what is he saying here? You know, it's like me in English class.
Yeah, I'm a lyric person.
And then we'd talk about it. And so I think that that's a really cool album. Anything from the Beatles? Like, we could probably do a whole episode on this.
Definitely.
When I was a kid, I had a weird, like, Beatles obsession. We would go to the record store. I'd be looking for any Beatles album that I didn't already have. I still
Yeah.
have my massive collection. And
Yeah.
so a lot of those albums are really special to me too.
Yeah, that's very cool. I would definitely pick The Queen is Dead is on my number one, number two, number three favorite record of all time. Well, they just encapsulate so much into that, so much feeling. And I just think from stop to finish, it's genius. I know that's not like a hot take because lots of people feel the same way about that record. Yeah, the Beatles. You went through a big Beatles thing. I do remember that. You know what was funny is being a music person, it was later till I got into the Beatles, to be honest with you. Led Zeppelin was another one I got into much later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's weird.
That is another one that actually reminds me. It's got to be an older album, would be The Velvet Underground.
Really?
Yeah.
That's probably my number one hot take, and I'm not saying that because I just don't get that album. I just don't.
Really?
Yeah, you talking about the one with the banana? What's it called? I don't
Andy
remember.
Warhol.
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah, the banana, but I can't remember the name of the record. But I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
I love it. And I have I have a playlist called Sunrise. That's a playlist I listen to when I need easy listening or something to play in the background, especially when I used to do homework and whatever. The Velvet Underground is all over that playlist.
Like person like me, you would think loves the Velvet Underground,
Hmm.
but I don't get it. I don't like it, and I'm sorry to say it. That's a no for me.
Yeah, I know that you have a hot take on that. Hmm. I do feel like now in like TVs and movies when they have that like stereotypical indie girl, she's always like the Velvet Underground fan. And I will say that's not me. I even kind of pick and choose what I like out of the Velvet Underground. There's another album from them that I like, but it's more like the soft listening is what's cool for me. I have no interest in what the history is.
Yeah, they have a long history in the scene, but it's just not for me, man. What's an album that you were disappointed by, or one that you don't like that lots of people seem to like?
Easily Reputation and Lover by Taylor Swift. Like
Oh,
being a
really?
Taylor Swift fan, I think that Reputation especially like has such a cult fan following in the fan club of Taylor Swift really. But yeah, I can't. Reputation is a no for sure. Just kind of the whole album. I don't ever really casually listen to it. Um, and then Lover, like here and there. I think I got into it like pretty late in the game too. When it first came out, I was just uninterested. Wasn't until like a couple years ago that I was like, I do like some of these songs on the album. So
I
yeah,
actually liked Lover.
I like a couple. Like The Man is a really good
Good.
song,
Hmm.
but as like a concept as a whole,
I liked Lover from the standpoint of a lot of the things she talks about.
mm-hmm.
Because it was definitely more of a, what's the best way of putting it? It was more of a social commentary
Yeah,
type album
yeah.
than anything. Because, of course, the man, of course, is self explanatory. And then she's, talking about,
You need to calm down.
yeah, need to calm down and those type of things. So I thought, I kind of liked that part of Lover. And it was, kind of catchy, poppy. So
Yeah.
I don't think I would go back and listen to it right now, but, at the time it was okay.
Any albums that you were disappointed by? Maybe from like the favorite
Velvet
artist,
Underground, no. From a favorite artist?
like more from your era, because Velvet Underground's not really like
Yeah, I know.
your
No, not my
generation.
era. Trying to think. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I will say there's bands that went along that I definitely were just like, no, I'm done. One big favorite of mine growing up was Pearl Jam,
Yeah.
another grunge band. I love 10, I love Vitology. I'm sorry, there was Versus before Vitology. And then I think the next one was Yield. I don't remember exactly, but that's where they lost me. So I checked out after that. The same thing with the Smashing Pumpkins. They did a record called The Machina, and then they had this one, Ava Adore, where they were going more into like this experimental kind of electronica, which some of it was cool. I appreciated. But really, I guess once the core broke up of the Smashing
Mhm.
Pumpkins, and then he, had different lineups within it, It's kind of when I stopped.
Hmm.
Because they stopped for a period, and then he came back with a record called Zeitgeist. And it wasn't the original lineup, and I didn't even bother, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I never had to get to that point, like I mentioned before with Nirvana, or really Guns N' Roses. I guess they put out that Chinese Democracy album, but that
Oh,
wasn't really a real Guns N' Roses record.
it was like, what was that? Like 2010 something?
I couldn't tell you, but it was like, it wasn't really Guns N' Roses. It was like Axl and some people using the Guns N' Roses name because he had the right to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like Slash was playing in a band called Velvet Revolver at the time
Interesting.
with some guys and from some of the guys from Stone Temple Pilots. So yeah, it wasn't a real Guns N' Roses record. So no, definitely on that. I think that happens more to me than not is I just start to really kind of fatigue. Green Day's another one. It's like, I think after American Idiot, I'm kind of done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is American Idiot might even be my favorite. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. After that, I've heard their songs. I actually own one of the later records, but I'm kind of over it.
Yeah. Bands are meant to break up so that the music doesn't go
Well,
down.
no, like anything else, they evolve, right? And
Yeah.
because you can't play the same song over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
unless you're the Ramones or something.
Yeah.
Like they seem to do that. So yeah, that's what happens a lot for me is I just listen to it and then it eventually hits a point and I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm kind of over this. I wouldn't blame it on the band as much as like I'm just not into it anymore.
Yeah. I can get that. Yeah. I feel the same way about Paramore.
So for me and Paramore, I was done after Riot, more or less.
Mm.
I've heard the other songs, and there's some good songs out there. But an actual Paramore fan, I was done after Riot.
Yeah.
I'm sure you agree with me. Is Panic at the Disco?
Oh gosh, yes. Panic at the Disco it's so interesting to me kind of their route because they were in the leagues of like that same punk of like Green Day
Fall
and
Out Boy.
Paramore and all of them, and it was like genuinely good music. And then like somewhere along the line, they kind of went down this weird, cringy emo
Yeah.
route. It's like the best way I can describe it.
So
Like,
if you told me, asked me the question again, and now thinking about it a little bit, I would have picked that second Panic record. The Fever You Can't Sweat Out for me is definitely a 10 of 10, no notes.
yeah,
Love everything in that record, all the different kind of like instrumentation they use. Because they're from Vegas, they definitely brought Vegas vibe and like an old school kind of show tune way.
yeah,
But it made it very cool and interesting. But then they did that, what was it? I just remember the single from the record was 9 in the Afternoon, which itself was okay, but it's like Pretty Odd something. That was their
yeah,
second album. I'm not, no, this is ridiculous. You
yeah,
know, the guy can sing, don't get me wrong. I don't know if Brendan Urie wants to be a pop star or what he wants to do, or if it's one of those cases where maybe he was feeling himself too
yeah.
much.
Yeah, I don't know. They just kind of went down a weird route.
Yeah. You know, and a lot of people say that about your girl, too.
Who?
Hayley Williams.
Yeah,
You know,
see?
was she like feeling herself and now she wants to be this big pop star instead of doing Paramore, and Gwen Stefani did the same thing with No Doubt. And yeah, definitely the second Panic record was like, what in the world is this?
Yeah.
That was definitely probably one of the most disappointing things ever. One last question before we stop.
Okay.
Who has maybe the best discography, almost no skips on any albums for you?
Hmm.
I mean, I got a couple answers, but one really sticks out to me. Like if you sat down and listened to all the records that you wouldn't have to skip a song.
I mean, that's hard because I feel like I'm so picky about what I listen to. Like, there's definitely a lot of Lana that I would skip just because I think that some of her albums are a little more, like, out there and experimental. And so I'd probably skip a lot of her music. Maybe Paramore, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, maybe
Well,
Paramore.
no, you can't say that because you just told me you didn't like those newer records.
Yeah, but it's like, it's so tough. It would have to be between Paramore and Taylor Swift for sure. But it's like,
Well,
Reputation to me
yeah,
is
I was
like
gonna
this
say, what
totally
about
throwaway
Reputation?
album. And so that's what I'm saying. I feel like I'm just so picky that it's like there's so many with any artist that I like, there's gonna be an album that's just like a throwaway album to me. And so it might have to be Paramore because I feel like I'm probably more likely to listen to some of those Paramore albums that I don't really like as much than I am to listen to Reputation, which might be a surprising thing for some people to hear.
I got a couple, man. I got a couple I could do. The first one that absolutely came to my mind was My Chemical Romance.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of a single song I would skip on any other albums. Yeah, not a single song I would skip on any of their albums, all even the one before the murder scene. I have it right here next to me. You brought me my bullet. I brought you my love, and you brought me your bullets, or whatever it's called. The first one that a lot of people don't know, even that one, even all the way through Danger Days, which everybody hates, but I love that record. It's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah. I love Danger Days as well.
So yeah, I think that was one that's a definite for me. I would go back and give say Guns N' Roses as well. Actually, if I did skip anything on the Guns N' Roses discography, it would be because I heard it too many times.
Mm.
Like some songs, I've heard them so many times that I just don't want to hear it ever again.
That's actually how I feel about Green Day. I've heard so much Green Day over and over and over again.
Because
I
your
could
mom left
go.
that CD in the car.
Yeah, I think that was the basket case.
Greatest hits.
Oh, was it just the greatest
Yeah.
hits? Maybe that's why. Listening to American Idiot, though, I've heard it too many times. I hear other people playing it, and I'm just like, please just don't. Some of their songs, more really on the Basket Case album than any of the other albums, they have a weird thing about it, and it definitely has to do with the CD playing in the car all the time. Of like, I get motion sickness in the car, for those that don't know. And so I think that like somewhere
And that's
in
Green
kind of
Day's fault.
yeah, no.
Tell Belly Joe.
Somewhere in my subconscious, like it's still the motion sickness is still tied to some of those songs. So I listen to like some of the songs off of the Basket Case album, and I start to feel car sick, like genuinely. So yeah, so my husband tries to play Green Day in the car all the time. I'm like, God, please skip this song. So yeah,
Trauma response.
yeah, I think so.
So we'll leave it there, shall we?
Show me the show.
And we'll reconvene next week. Next week, you want to tell them what we're going to talk about?
Yep, next week we're going to watch some movies from our two generations, possibly talk about some high school dynamics, so keep on getting into kind of the youth of our generations. I think there's going to be some exciting conversations. I'm looking forward to it, so it's going to be cool.
You want to tell them the movies or we give them a hint?
I think we can give them a hint, but I don't want to give it all away too much.
Okay, well, we'll just say that next week's pod is going to be more cohesive.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
So we'll return to our original format of just doing our big topic of the day and then doing the crossover where we talk about something from each other's generation. I think, Rookie, I want you to study up for next week on this whole Blake Lively, Taylor Swift, and Justin Baldoni thing.
Oh, I have some. Actually, I have some tea for next week. So
Good.
I've
I
done
like
some
to hear
deep
that.
dives already. Yep, get ready, you guys.
All right. Until next time, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, share, or we don't care. You can also find us on Instagram at Vinyl to Viral and on TikTok. If you want to find me on Instagram personally, it's Wes _author ultra runner. I don't know if Veruca wants to be found on Instagram. I'll let her decide that. And for those of you who don't know, Veruca is actually a talented artist. If you want to share your art.
Oh yeah, you can follow me there. Actually, that's gonna be at art.by.veruca.
All right. Until next time, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy it. Send us some of your record recommendations. Until next time, peace.
Peace.